Hello everyone, you're very welcome back to the channel. This is our Winning Formula YouTube channel debrief of the Monaco Grand Prix 2021 that took place earlier today. I'm very tempted to say that this should be a relatively quick debrief today because not a lot happened in the race. But there were a few little incidents which I think is always useful to talk about, and we can get into that shortly. Before I do that, however, I do want to mention the qualifying session which took place yesterday. I had anticipated that qualifying could actually be, let's say, more exciting than the race itself. Unfortunately, that is kind of what transpired in the end. That's sometimes just the way it goes, especially when you have a very tight circuit like you do at Monaco, and the Formula 1 cars have gotten so big in the last couple of years as well. So it doesn't help for the spectacle. In saying that, Monaco is probably the best looking circuit that we have on the calendar, and seeing the cars go around there on a sunny day is quite a spectacle. It's just not with a lot of on-track action. Now, the expectation going into Monaco, of course, is you're going to have a lot of crashes, barriers, people running into the barriers, people getting stuck, going into escape roads, and a lot of safety cars as a result of that. So you would expect that a lot of teams would actually be banking on that to happen as well. Yeah, not so much this weekend as it turned out. Most of the major incidents happened in qualifying. So let's kick things off and look at qualifying and how qualifying went. So what's the best way to do this? Let me show you the grid. Okay, how do we do this? All right, here we go. Now let's get rid of all of this, please. And so I might even make myself disappear for a second. Bye-bye. Okay, the qualifying grid. Charles Leclerc qualified in first place for the race. Max Verstappen second. Bottas third. Very notable here in the starting grid, of course, Hamilton was starting only in 7th place, way down, way further down than you would expect. And look at Perez starting in 9th place as well. Vettel had a very good qualifying session. Giovinazzi, fantastic for him as well to make it into the top 10. Sainz was there or thereabouts in all of the practice sessions. So I know he was definitely disappointed that he didn't get another shot at this. And so what happened? Because there were many aggrieved drivers in the starting grid. You would think Verstappen would be happy with second. Bottas should be pleased enough with third relative to his teammate Hamilton. That wasn't the case at all. Leclerc was on his second run, and this was really, setting up things for all the cars coming around. They were all on the hot lap behind him, and he just got it wrong coming through Raskas, I think, and he clipped the corner. His front wishbone broke, no control over the car, straight into the barrier, and it was red flagged from there. There wasn't enough time to finish the qualifying, and of course Bottas, Sainz, Verstappen, Hamilton, so many of these guys were on flying laps, and they all had to abort their flying lap because obviously the qualifying session itself was red flagged. So definitely not ideal for those guys, but it did set us up very interestingly, having a Ferrari in first place. Big question then, could Leclerc actually make it to the grid? Did he have gearbox damage? They kept quiet on that for a little while. Then we heard later this morning that yeah, he would indeed be able to make it to the grid. They don't have gearbox trouble, and they wouldn't have to take a 5-place grid penalty. And of course that means Hamilton is starting in 7th as well. So very tantalizing for the championship, having Hamilton in 7th and Verstappen in 2nd. And yeah, overtaking, it just doesn't happen here. So then later, just before the race, Leclerc went out for a run, just coming around to the grid, and he knew immediately there was something wrong with the car, and it wasn't working for him. So he radioed up the garage straight away. He let them know what was happening. He went back into the pits, and then we heard that he is not starting the race, so Leclerc won't make the race. The initial feedback was that the wishbone in the car was broken. Sorry, not the wishbone. The drive shaft was broken. But no, this didn't turn out to be the case, because later on there was an interview actually with Charles Leclerc during the race, and he implied that it could be something else. It's not linked to the gearbox. Of course, I feel like that's the party line. Even if it is linked to the gearbox, they're going to say it isn't and try and avoid a mandated penalty immediately until they have fully investigated exactly what's happening there. But it really got me thinking, this was such a crazy gamble that Ferrari took. They should have just taken their 5-place penalty, replaced the gearbox. That would have put Leclerc down into 6th, but it would have put Sainz into 3rd place, and at least they could have 2 cars finishing in the top, in the top 6, in the top 10, whatever, in the points. That's the main thing, because Ferrari need that. They're battling so closely at the moment with McLaren. But no, it didn't transpire that way, and so Leclerc not able to start the race. So that's Leclerc out. And as a result, Verstappen was effectively starting on pole position, even though he was on the 2nd grid slot. They just left Leclerc's grid slot empty. Bottas was starting in 3rd, and his teammate, Leclerc's teammate, that is Sainz, was starting in 3rd place. So a big issue there for Ferrari, unfortunately. And of course, it means Hamilton was now starting in 6th place, which is a bit better for Hamilton. He certainly wasn't happy to be starting in 7th. I'm sure he's not happy with 6th either. Okay, and then we get to the race start from there. Very quickly looking at what I have written down here. Okay, so Stroll and the Haas drivers were all starting on the hard tyres, and then pretty much everybody from, I would say, 11th back then, they were all on the medium tyres. And we have, of course, had the top 10 all starting on the soft tyres. We got underway, the race started. There were no huge dramatics at the start, thankfully, because, Monaco is such a tight circuit. If one car gets it wrong, inevitably a lot of other cars are going to end up in some kind of pile-up or in some kind of trouble as well. It was a very aggressive start from Verstappen. He wasn't taking any chances with Bottas. He had his car pointing in the direction to cover him off, and he did so. He was a man on a mission, and he went about doing that, and he did that. And as I said, it was an aggressive start, but it worked. It did the trick, and then Verstappen was able to, pull out a bit of a lead and ensure that he was outside of the DRS range of Bottas. Not that it probably would have made much difference. DRS isn't hugely effective in Monaco because you still have to get the overtake done, and there isn't really a huge straight on the start finish either to get that done, and into the first corner there's very little space, so it's tricky. It's certainly tricky even with DRS. So Bottas was out of the DRS range on about lap 4, I would say, and then Perez was stuck behind Vettel in 8th place. So it didn't look great for Perez at that point in time, I must say. And I just feel I really want, and I've said this previous times before as well, I really want Perez to get into the action and get involved in all of this. But that's the way it was going. Okay, where do we go from there? So on lap 28, and you can see the way I'm skipping already from first lap through to the 28th lap. So that is a good indicator that, there just wasn't a lot happening in this race at all. Okay, so we're on lap 28, and Sainz was complaining about Bottas being too slow. So this was a 3rd place driver closing in on 2nd place, and this was good. I was intrigued at this point in time because I figured, Sainz, he's certainly the type of driver that would try to pull off a move in this race. So getting very excited about that. Then on lap 30, the first of the Mercs pits, it was Hamilton. And he was trying to undercut Gasly, who was ahead of him. It didn't work out so well for Hamilton, and I must say these set of pit stops was the major action point in this race. this is where it was all happening. Bottas then pitted on lap 31, and disaster for Bottas. The nut on the wheel was stuck. They just couldn't get it off, and they tried different nut guns to get that off. Nothing was working out, and eventually they just wore away the tread on that, and there was absolutely nothing they could do. They couldn't get this off, so Bottas had to retire from the race. Bottas, the second place driver, was out of the race. So this is a huge disaster for Mercedes. This is right up there with the Ferrari disaster that we had for Leclerc. Really, really dramatic. What that means, of course, is Carlos Sainz was now up to second place and Lando Norris was into third place. When Gasly came out from his pit stops, because he pitted after Hamilton, he actually overcut, instead of undercut, he overcut Hamilton, and he actually came back out of the pits ahead of Hamilton. Hamilton was immediately on the radio and he was raging. But you know what? It got even worse from there for Hamilton, because immediately after that, Vettel pitted. Vettel pitted. He pitted and he came out also ahead of Hamilton. In fact, he came out ahead of Gasly and Hamilton. So he made up 2 positions in the pit stops. So he completely overcut the pair of them. And once again, Hamilton was on the radio. He was really annoyed about this. He was really angry. And I guess you can't blame him, but it's hard to feel sorry for him, because Mercedes always have such strong strategies, and this one occasion it just didn't work out so well for them, and that's the way the game goes. Red Bull, of course, have been in that situation many times themselves, so yeah, it's a tricky one for them. Okay, going from there, Sainz came into the pit then on lap 33. Nothing dramatic about that, thankfully. And on lap 34, we finally had the race leader Verstappen pitting. Hamilton then was told that Perez could also overcut him. As you can imagine, this was not met with happiness on the Hamilton side, but very surprising for Hamilton to hear this. So Perez was in the lead actually, because he was still out on the track. So Perez actually effectively inherited the lead, but hadn't made his pit stop yet. And then finally on lap 35, so one lap later, Perez comes into the pits and he comes back out in 4th place. So he's jumped all those drivers. So really, really good from Red Bull. Really good for Perez as well. The clear air he had out in the lead, it was only for a lap or 2, but he really made it count and he made that overcut work. And he was quite a distance ahead of Hamilton when he came out. So it was really surprising how well the overcut was working in this race. So Norris now is in 3rd place. Norris had a relatively quiet race because he wasn't really battling with 2nd place and he wasn't battling with 4th place. Sainz looked like he was slowly catching Verstappen. On lap 48, the gap seemed to come down to about 2.5 seconds, and then very quickly went back to 3 seconds. So I suspect that there was a certain element of the back markers being involved in this as well. And I also suspect my other strong suspicion here, I would say, is that Verstappen had control over the gap. And you can see what title I've used for this video on the thumbnail, and it's Max Control. I feel like Max Verstappen had complete control over this race. Inheriting 1st place from Leclerc, it was the ultimate present to give to Verstappen, and he was very comfortable throughout the entire race. And spoiler alert, of course, Verstappen won the race. Lap 52. Lando Norris laps Ricciardo. Oh my goodness, what is happening? So this is a cruel weekend for Ricciardo. Of course, he had a very difficult qualifying, which put him way back, but then to be lapped by your teammate, and by the way, your teammate is also on the podium, that is really going to hurt. Ricciardo is not beaten very often by his teammate. He beat Vettel when he was with Vettel in Red Bull, and he put it up to Max Verstappen as well. So this McLaren just is not suiting him at the moment. This is a huge challenge for Ricciardo, and I really hope that he gets to grips with the car soon. It looked like he had done that at the last race, but no. When Monaco comes around, he's not quite there yet. And I'm hoping, as I keep saying, praying that he gets to grips with this very, very soon. Okay, let me see. Where do we go from there? So I'm going to skip all the way then towards lap 58. Norris comes on the radio. He says he's really worried about the tyres. But, you know, that might as well have been a Hamilton call because it didn't look like he had too much of an issue with the tyres. And, yeah, he did go on to finish in 3rd place. Oops, another spoiler alert. But I assume everybody watching this video already knows who won and the main points finishers. And, of course, you know, strong implication from the video thumbnail as well that Verstappen was the winner. And indeed he was. Lap 63, Stroll was under investigation. Woohoo! We finally have some action. It looks like he may have crossed over the pit lines on his exit from the pits. And the onboard camera made this look really, really harsh. But they don't investigate these things for no reason. So you're thinking, Sam Tunk. Actually, as it turns out, in the day that was in it, no action. No further action was to be taken, so they deemed that he didn't do anything illegal. There you go. And the very final thing to mention, I guess, from the race is that Hamilton did set the fastest lap. So the only thing that Hamilton could salvage from this race was the fastest lap, but a very difficult day for Lewis Hamilton. Now let me get us back into our presentation mode. Here we go. All right. Next up, then we have, moving from there. Here we go. Here is our race result. So, yes, Verstappen finishes in 1st place. Never really in doubt. He was essentially in control of this throughout. So there was no issue there for Verstappen. In 2nd place we had Sainz. Sainz was relatively comfortable as well. It looked like he probably would have been able to keep up to Verstappen, although Verstappen probably had a little bit more in hand. Very difficult to tell, actually. Sainz didn't really challenge at any point in time, but from all the free practice sessions that we saw over the weekend, you know, from Thursday onwards, it looked like Sainz did have the speed. So that was intriguing. And, you know, it makes you wonder, how would this race have turned out if LeClerc had started in first and, of course, stayed in first into the first corner? Would he have, would he have managed to hold off Verstappen? Because, as you know, overtaking at this circuit is very, very challenging. In 3rd place, then, we had Lando Norris, who, of course, lapped his teammate. Amazing, amazing. Next from there, so let's have a look then at the final classification. Probably need to make myself disappear again for a second. So here we are, Verstappen, Sainz, Norris. Then Perez finished in 4th place. So good points for Red Bull. And that overcut working really, really well for Perez. So we have Perez there in 4th place. He was 20 seconds behind the lead. We have then Vettel coming next in 5th place. What a great result for Sebastian Vettel, you know. On the difficult, challenging Monaco circuit, he managed to pull it off. So that was very, very good for him. So he is in 5th place. Gasly is in 6th, once again solid. And these, you know, Vettel, Gasly, Perez, these were drivers, and Sainz to an extent as well. These were drivers who really wanted to get a good result, or needed to get a good result to kind of reassure the world that they're here and they're active. I guess I'm not as concerned about Sainz. You know, he's getting to grips with what is traditionally a very challenging car in the Ferrari. And so, yeah, he did that. And then looking down further through the order, Hamilton finished in 7th. So he started in 7th. He inherited one position at the start. So actually, he lost one position between the start and finish, you could say. And that is because of the overcut coming from Perez and Vettel. Yeah, challenging for Hamilton, but of course he got the fastest lap, so that's one additional point back. Stroll finished in 8th place, so both of the Aston Martins in the top 10. Of course, this is one circuit where, you know, the top speed and I guess the rake to a certain extent won't have impacted them as much. Although in saying that, Mercedes weren't very strong, so it's a bit strange the way that worked out. In 9th place, Ocon once again beating his teammate and scoring points. What must Alonso be thinking back in 13th? And in 10th, Giovinazzi gets a point for Alfa Romeo with his teammate Raikkonen in 11th. So good performance again from the Alfa Romeos. Ricciardo, a very challenging 12th place for him. Alonso, what is going on? He's in 13th, so Alonso hasn't returned to Formula 1 just yet. He's there in body, but probably not in mind just yet. Russell finishes in 14th, Latifi in 15th. Fairly okay result, I suppose, for Williams, considering they finished ahead of Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. However, Latifi was very close to Russell in this race. Not within 1 second close that he was DRSing him or anything like that. And DRSing is a new term I've just created right now, so maybe I'll copyright that one. But it was 3, 4, 5 seconds difference between them, which is quite a good race from Latifi to keep with Russell. Tsunoda, as I said, was in 16th. Mazepin beats Schumacher. He's in 17th place, and Schumacher then is in 18th. And of course, Schumacher didn't qualify yesterday after a big crash that he had in free practice 3. Don't think it would have made any difference because Schumacher overtook Mazepin at the very start of the race into the hairpin. One of the very few overtaking moves we actually saw in this race. And I've no idea what happened after that. But it looked like Mazepin finished quite a bit ahead of Schumacher. So there was obviously some kind of drama there. I need to look into that a little bit. But I'm not fully sure as to what exactly happened there. So yes, as we see, we have our top 3. And yes, apologies for that. I've actually gone ever so slightly backwards here. Alrighty, so that is that. Driver of the day, as voted by us, the public, onto the official Formula 1 website, was Sebastian Vettel. And I was thinking about this. In my mind, it was either going to be Perez or Vettel, and so it was Vettel in the end. Very good. Great to see him back there, scoring some solid points, and of course being the driver of the day. So yeah, happy to see that. What does this do to the standings? Well, believe it or not, and I didn't think this was actually going to happen, but Verstappen is now ahead of Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship, only by 4 points, but there was a gap of 14 points coming into this race. So this is a great overturn or overhaul by Verstappen here to get himself into first place in the championship. Norris retakes third place in the championship from Bottas. And Perez has moved up as well, and he's overtaken both, well, not both, but he has overtaken Leclerc, and Leclerc now has company from his teammate Sainz, who's now only 2 points behind. So this DNS did not finish. DNS did not start for Leclerc, has really damaged his championship aspirations for the moment. Ricciardo dropping down as well, being overtaken by Sainz in the Ferrari. Gasly is up to 9th in the championship, and Ocon drops down to 10th. But fantastic for Ocon to be in the top 10, I would say. Don't mean to be condescending there, but he's really outperforming his teammate here. And now we need to look at the constructors standings. So how do the constructor standings now look? Red Bull up to first place. Can you believe 1 point? Only 1 point in it. I told you fastest lap is going to be such a critical result this season as well. And you can see the little battles for fastest lap happening at the end of every race so far this season. The teams know it as well, that this is going to be critical. So there you go, 1 point lead for Red Bull. Red Bull, you know, it gives you wings. Yeah, it gives you flexi rear wings more like. But there you go, Red Bull are on top of the championship. McLaren now in third place, 2 points ahead of Ferrari. Once again, DNF for Leclerc has really damaged Ferrari. This is not good for Ferrari. You know, we're hearing it's not the gearbox. I suspect it probably was the gearbox. And yeah, they should have just changed that gearbox and taken a few extra points, because every point counts in this championship. So far, I know, round 5, a good few more rounds to go, and maybe the development war will take one of the teams above the other, and, you know, off they go from there. But yeah, that is it. What else is notable here? Aston Martin obviously picking up dual points in this race. AlphaTauri stay where they are. They did, of course, pick up some points through Gasly. Alpine dropping down despite Ocon scoring points. Of course, Alfa Romeo get their first official point on the table. Hopefully that isn't taken away from them this time. And Williams and Haas, the two teams with no points just yet. And of course, George Russell was so close to scoring points potentially in where was it? Was it Imola? Yes, it was in Imola before he had that rather big crash with his Mercedes colleague, let's call him Valtteri Bottas. And that's it. And then the one amazing fact, nearly fell off my seat when I heard this today, there were no yellow flags in this race. Okay, one thing to have no safety car, no virtual safety car, no yellow flags. That is how much of a procession this race was. And that is why the pit window at the very first third of the race, let's say 1/3 of the way through the race, was the most excitement we had in the entire race. So it was ever so slightly boring, but beautiful to look at. And maybe we do need to have a debate in the future as to whether or not the Monaco Grand Prix should remain on the calendars. And I think, looking at the diagrams where they show you the size difference between the cars, from a few years ago up to now, overtaking is going to be impossible. Also, and I keep mentioning this, but the Formula E really showed us how to do it. They have smaller cars. They don't have as much they don't have as much speed. Yes, I'll give you that. They don't have as much dirty air as well coming off the car ahead, and it's really nose to tail racing. And it was such a dramatically exciting race that we had in Monaco a few weeks ago in the Formula E. Yeah, it was really good. And from there, I absolutely must mention the Formula 2 as well, which was back this weekend in all its glory. So we had 3 rounds, 2 sprint races and 1 feature race. Guanyu Zhou won the first race on Thursday. Never knew it was... No, sorry. Friday. That's it. Did not know the race was on. Took me by surprise completely. Was a little bit disappointed because I would have liked to watch that on Friday evening without knowing the result. But there you go. For me, the second race Saturday morning was where all the excitement was. Now that kicked off 7:20 a.m. I think my time Saturday morning. I recorded that, but watched it after I got up on Saturday morning. Thoroughly entertaining race, won by Liam Lawson. But actually, afterwards, a few hours after the race, we find out that he had illegal mapping on his engine, and he was disqualified. And so that promoted Dan Ticktum up to first place. It was such an amazing race, though, between Lawson, Ticktum, and Piastri. Piastri completely outperforming his teammate Schwartzman at the moment. But there you go. Yeah, very exciting second race. I felt very robbed, though, when I found out that Lawson was disqualified because he drove such a good race. If you do something illegal, those are the rules, and that's it. But it was such an exciting race, and he drove so well during the race. And it wasn't the mapping that made him drive better. It was the mapping that got him into the first corner ahead of whoever he needs to be ahead of. I think Piastri went into the first corner in the lead, actually. All right, so obviously, yes, as I mentioned, Ticktum came first in that one, and then in the third race, which was the feature race, so this was the longer race with the let's say the mandated pit stop in there as well. Dan Ticktum was in a very, very strong position for that race as well, and he pulled off a really silly maneuver around the outside of one of the other drivers. I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been Piastri, actually, that he was trying to pull off this move on. And he ended up, not so much in the wall, but in an angle where he couldn't turn the car and was basically stuck. And he didn't seem to be able to engage the reverse gear. And, it only lasted so long. He was overtaken then by pretty much every car on the track. And so he retired from the race. So the feature race was actually won by Theo Pocherer, as you can see there. The French driver third in the championship now as a result of that. But of course, the last French driver to win in Formula 2 was Hubert, so that was kind of bittersweet to see another French driver win. And he also becomes the youngest driver to ever win a Formula 2 race, ahead of taking that record, I should say, from Lando Norris. So there you go, possibly a name for the future. And so he won that race. Piastri was in second. Look at Piastri, second in 2 of the races, and then he came 8th in the other one, and he already has a win as well from the Bahrain weekend. He is a good driver, and Schwartzman only managed maximum 4th place. Drugovich had some good results as well, 2nd and 3rd in one of the sprint races and the feature race, and didn't get any points in the other sprint race. So looking at the championship now, we have Zhou is winning. He's a 14-point lead. You know, Hamilton had a 14-point lead coming into this weekend as well, so it can be turned around, as we've seen. And I guess when there are 3 races in one weekend in particular, it can really be turned around. Piastri very strong in 2nd place. Porsche in 3rd place. So the rookie's doing really, really well. Dan Ticktum, yeah, you know, he should be right up there, but he has had some silliness so far this season. But I think that's actually typical of Ticktum. You know, he is known for being hot-headed. And Lawson, of course, should be much further up as well. Has had some bad luck, of course, the mapping incident, and he's doing really well. You know, he looks like an exciting driver for the future as well. And I believe that brings us to the very end of the debrief. Now, I'm trying to think if I had anything else to mention. Yeah, we've talked about the yellow flags, and that's right. So that was it. Not a terribly exciting race from Monaco this weekend. Formula 2 was probably slightly more exciting. Of course, it doesn't compare to the Formula E that we had in Monaco. Okay, I'll stop going on about that now. I'm sure we're due a very boring race from Formula E next time out just to make up for it. But that's where we're at right now. Just a reminder before I finish, if you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and you can hit the bell as well if you want to be notified of future videos. So that's nice. And I think that's everything. That's everything for now. So thank you very much for watching. Looking forward to seeing you again in the future. And this has been a great championship so far this year, and long may it continue. All right, signing off, and speak to you again soon.